Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Battlestar Galactica on Tabletop Simulator. Alright, so right off the bat, we already have a mutineer revealed, which cost Lewis his job as Admiral. He didn't really get to do much with it. Boomer now has CAG and Admiral, which does give her quite a bit of power at the beginning of the game. And responsibility, I guess, if you want to talk about things like that. Our first player is going to be Laura Roslin, so we're going to go ahead and go through the turns now. So first turn, first thing you do is you draw cards. So 3 politics, 2 leadership. So 1, 2, 3, and some leadership. Okay. So for these cards, you can see that they'll be labeled with they're color coded. They also have their type below the name, the title of the card. So you can see Consolidate Power has politics under it. So if you have trouble seeing the color, at least it's labeled in italics. The top left number represents the strength of the card, which is what usually that's only important for skill checks, but there's a few exceptions depending on what characters you're playing as. And then the card will have some sort of effect, and usually what is required to activate it. So in the case of Consolidate Power, it requires an action. During your turn, characters have movement and then an action in that order. So if you choose to take an action, you will end up giving up your movement. So that's just something to be aware of. There are a few skill cards that do use movement. In fact, I believe Hoshi actually has one of those cards. So this one actually uses up your movement in exchange for getting an action. There's a few that will say skill check. Yeah, this one here. These ones that say skill check will usually do a special effect when they're added to a skill check. They usually have that little symbol besides the zero, beside their strength. Usually there'll be 0 strength as well. And then there's some cards that are just activated during skill checks, either before or after a skill check and so forth. All right, I think that's all of that. Okay, so at this point, our main goal, as I mentioned before, is we need to get we need to get to Kobold. To do that, we have to increase the jump chart, which is usually done through crises. Crises will essentially give you will be your main source for jump prep, and as you go up the jump track, eventually you'll auto jump. In which case, you will finally get to pick a destination and get some progress as humans. But while you're doing that, you need to also do things to try to make sure your resources are still good, make sure you're not getting, making sure your civvy ships are safe, and making sure that the cylons don't ravage the entire board with ships. So, right now, Laura Roslin is at the Colonial One. Now, she does have some limitations, unfortunately. Oh, not some limitations. Sorry. There are multiple ships. There's the Galactica here, which is the main ship. There's Colonial 1, which is essentially the president ship. And then over here we have the Pegasus. Usually when you are moving, you can move to any location on your ship without really any cost. You cannot voluntarily move into any of these yellow bordered sections because those are hazardous locations. But if you want to move to a different ship, so for example, if Laura Roslin wanted to go to the Galactica or to the Pegasus, she has to discard a card as she's moving. So that's the only limitation for movement for the most part. There's a little bit of movement rules when you're moving in space, but that's really only applies to pilots. Right now, Laura Roslin doesn't have much to do. Draw 2 politics and give this to another player. Keep this card in play. Before cards are added to the skill check, this player may discard this card to make all politics cards and the skill check count as positive strength. Okay, so I can assign Chief of Staff with this card. That could be useful. The other option is Executive Order. Executive Order is probably one of the most powerful things humans can do in this game, because what it can do is you can give that to a player, and they can essentially get double actions or an action and a move, which can be useful. Unfortunately, she's at this point now. One of the important things about this game is when you're playing with people is secrecy. You can't really tell people what you have in your hand. So at this point, she's probably like thinking, all right, is there anyone that can actually? She'll probably be like, hey, is there anyone that could really benefit being XO'd right now? Obviously, she has to keep in mind that some of these people could be Cylons right now, but her options either is to play a quorum card or try to do XO somebody. And I think right now, she's going to go ahead and assign a chief of staff. I think that's what we're going to go for. So yeah, she's going to go ahead and use her. For her movement, she will stay. She'll go to the quorum chamber. Doesn't really matter, but she'll stay there for now. She's going to go ahead and play this quorum card. So she gets to draw 2 politics cards. So we'll add those to the thing. Alright, and then she can give this to a player. She's going to go ahead and make Chief her Chief. Aha, get it. Alright, so with this, that player can now use this before a skill check to make, so before a skill check, this player can discard this card to make all politics cards count as positive. So she's essentially giving this player a unique power that will hopefully be beneficial to everybody. Obviously, if it's a Cylon, they might choose not to do that. Anyway, or use it in a bad way. There are ways to use it in a bad way, by the way. There's plenty of things you can do in this game. Alright, with all that said and done, now it goes, once you've done your movement and your action, it goes to the crisis phase. So during usually when this happens, you draw 1 card from the crisis deck and you go and resolve it. Laura Rosalind's special ability, she actually draws 2, looks at them, and picks 1, and puts the other on the bottom of the deck. So she's going to draw 2 of these. So her choices are Unfair Bias, which is a skill check with a jump prep and has Raiders activating. And then the other one is a skill check that doesn't have a jump prep. And both of these most of the time these skill checks, the pass effect is usually just nothing bad happens to you. Now, she's going to go ahead and put this card on the bottom because she doesn't want it. There are ways to see the bottom of the deck, so there's ways to kind of check this, though it's pretty rare. And then she's going to put this on the field. Now, I'll talk a little bit about crises. So if you see those colored tabs in that number in the top left, that means it's going to be a skill check, or it could potentially be a skill check. 12 represents the strength that you need to meet or beat in order to succeed at it. The colored tabs represent what cards count as positive towards this check. You can see the pass and fail effects. All these crises are based off various events in the show, so you can even see quotes from it. The bottom left represents what the Cylon fleet will do in response to this crisis, and then the bottom right, there's sometimes a starburst symbol that represents jump prep. So if there's that symbol, once you resolve it, you'll actually go up the jump preparation. So generally, humans will want to get that starburst symbol as often as possible. Alright, so that's a lot to go into. Alright, so we reveal it, and at this point the players will probably be discussing, okay, what should we do about this? If there's any cards they want to play that activate before a skill check, they can do it now. And one thing at this point they're probably in all agreement. The fail would be pretty bad, because right now Laura Rosalind just got 7 cards, and she kind of doesn't want to lose them. But it's yellow, green, and purple, which is pretty much the colors that everyone here is actually pretty safe on using. So with that said and done, we're going to go ahead and do the skill check. Now, when you do a skill check, you need to make what's called the Destiny deck. The Destiny deck consists of 2 of every type of card, including Treachery. And whenever you do a skill check, you will always, at the beginning of it, add, unless you use a card that prevents it, you'll be adding 2 cards from the Destiny deck. What this represents is a kind of way of muddying the waters a little bit, because if you didn't have the Destiny deck, you can kind of keep track. It would be very easy to tell if someone tried to spike the check with wrong colors. Like, for example, if there was no Destiny deck and all of a sudden there was piloting cards, all eyes would be on Boomer at this point for, hey, why'd you screw up this check? Speaking of the check and spiking it, like I said before, yellow, green, and purple represent positive colors. So if you put yellow cards in, that number is what's added to the check. If you put something that is not that color, that number is subtracted from the check. So if consolidate power is in, it would add 2 to the check, totaling to 2. And then if someone else put in a piloting card with 2, it would bring it back down to 0. So once all those numbers are tallied up, if it's 12 or higher, it's a pass. Alright, so first things first, we've already shuffled it, so actually, I'll make sure I shuffled it. There you go. Alright, so 2 cards from the check. Now the order of operations is it goes to the next person, and they decide if they want to put any cards in. Chief will go ahead and put in 1 card. Now these cards are put in face down. There are ways to play them face up, like Investigative Committee could force players to play them face up so we can all see them, but no one's going to be doing that right now. Boomer. Boomer. I mean, it's politics, and she already knows that the president kind of already drew a bunch of cards. And the strategic planning is actually kind of useful. She will pass and not put anything in. Alright, Lewis will go ahead and see what he's got. He's actually okay with getting rid of the... Now remember, the Destiny deck could have added in any color at this point. He actually doesn't get very much benefit from Critical Situation because of his freaking discard card to use skill action cards things. So he's going to go ahead and put that in there along with Major Victory. Okay. And then it finally goes to Rosalind, who's the current player. She's going to go ahead and throw some stuff in here. She's kind of concerned about this, so she wants to get this as good as possible. And she doesn't know what everyone else put in. The best that anyone can tell you when they add stuff in is whether or not they add something that helped a lot, helped a little. That's really the only answers you can get from people. Or, you know, hey, I just put some stuff in, but I'm going to need some help to finish it off. But yeah, you can't just say, okay, I just put 12 points in. You can't say that in this game. Secrecy is actually really important. Alright, so we'll go ahead and shuffle these and reveal them. +2. Dogfight. It's a wrong color, but it's 0 cost, so it doesn't actually harm it, and it has an effect that it's applied to the skill check. Alright, so this is 2, so 4. 0, but it's a skill check. Iron Will, which is also a skill check, but 0. This brings it up to 7. 10. 12. And 16. So we actually overshot by about 4. So we'll go through these real quick. There's the Dratus Contact. What this will do is it'll add 2 raiders to the front of the Galactica. So we'll add 2 raiders to the front. The current player gets to decide the order that the skills are resolved in. And then there's Dogfight. The current player may damage a Viper in a space area or the reserves to remove 1 other's card from this check. I'm just seeing if there's actually anything. It says remove it. It doesn't say take it, which is kind of the problem. So yeah, I don't think there's anything she actually wants to get rid of. She could have removed the Dratus Contact, but the Raiders are not that big of a deal at this point. Of course, it could very easily get out of control. The check passed. There is the Iron Will card as well. What this does is if you fail it by within 4, you don't trigger the fail effect. You just don't trigger the pass effect, which usually is not a big deal. But the catch with Iron Will is if you fail the check and the total score is 0 or less, you'll actually lose morale. And morale is one of those things you have to keep up or else you'll die. So it's kind of a important thing. Alright, so good news is the check passed, so no bad things happen. They did overshot. Now, one thing to note, a common trap for human players is they could sometimes dump a lot of cards into a check and end up overshooting it. And that's a bad thing because then you have less cards to handle other checks. But it's kind of a thing you kind of just have to learn as you play type situation. Anyway, alright, so after you resolve the check, in the crisis, you go to the bottom left and do what's there, which that symbol represents raiders, which means the raiders activate. Now the way raiders work is they will shoot at any ship that's in their sector, like the Vipers. If they have nothing that they're engaged against, they will make a beeline towards the closest civilian ship. And if the distance to get to the civilian ship is equal, they go clockwise. So this is equal right now, so I'm going to go this way. And they're going to make their way towards these civvy ships here. Alright. And then you do the bottom right, which is the jump prep. Increase that by 1. And then you resolved it. And then this just gets discarded. Alright. And that's the turn. Laura Roslin did her thing. She's done with her turn. And it now goes to Chief. Chief's going to go ahead and draw 1 politics, 2 leadership, and 2 engineering. Alright, he is currently in the hangar deck. So what he's going to do, he's actually not going to move anywhere. What he's going to do is he's going to play this repair card. You can repair your current location if it's been damaged, or if you're in the hangar deck, you can repair 2 damaged Vipers. With the expansions, you actually start with a bunch of damaged Mark 7s, which are better than Mark 2s. They are harder to shoot down, and they actually move 2 spaces every time they move once, instead of just 1 space. So he's going to go ahead and repair these. The lore behind them is in the beginning of the series, they had these Mark 7s, but there was a bug with the OS, and it got hacked, and essentially disabled all the ships, and then they just got obliterated. So essentially what he's doing is just, fixing it. So he repairs, does that. Now his special ability is whenever he uses a repair, he can actually take another action once per turn. So right now he's going to go ahead and do an executive order. And he's going to use an executive order on, let's see, what's his special ability? You can discard a card to activate a location again. That's kind of interesting. Oh, it's also once during his turn, so you can only do it during his turn. Alright. Alright, well, with that in mind, he's gonna, it's like either I XO Boomer to get her out in the field, or I XO Lewis. I mean, I could also XO Laura, but that's not really much benefit. I mean, she can do stuff. She'll probably say she can do stuff, but there's probably better choices out there. So with that being said, he's going to XO Boomer. So Boomer right now gets either a move and an action or 2 actions. You can only use 1 of these per turn, so you can't just stack them. So Boomer's going to go ahead and move to the hangar, and then she's going to launch herself in a Viper, and then she can take an additional action. So she's going to launch herself in a Viper. She's going to take a Mark 7 Viper, and then she gets another action. So she still has 1 action to spend. For her action, she's going to go ahead and activate CAG. Once per turn, if you're piloting a Viper, you may activate 1 unmanned Viper and then take another action. So with that, she's going to go ahead and send a Viper. She'll send a Viper 1 space. How do I want to do this? You know what? I'm actually going to deploy over here. By the way, when you exit the hangar, you actually have to exit into these docking areas, which are these 2 sections in the bottom. So yeah, I'll have her go out this way. Then I'm going to activate a Viper. I'm going to send this Viper, that unmanned Viper, over here. And then I still have an action left. I'm going to use that action to go ahead and move up to here. Yeah, I'm going to do it that way. I could have, gone straight to the Raiders, but then I would just be sitting there and I could potentially get hit 5 times because of it. Alright, so the XO resolves. It's still... By the way, I need to move the turn order. So here it is. It's still Chief's turn. He's now finished his turn. He's going to go ahead and draw a crisis. He only draws one. Guilty Conscience. It's a skill check. The current player discards 3 random skill cards if it fails. It's just 7 for the check, and it's actually pretty harmless. At this point, Galen would be saying, hey, I have some good cards here. I don't exactly want to lose them. So he's going to go ahead, the skill check's going to start. It goes Boomer first. Boomer can't, literally it's yellow and green. She doesn't even have those cards. So she's going to say she can't do anything. Lewis can't do anything. And it kind of comes down to Laura. And unfortunately, she doesn't really have much to play around with. I mean, she can dump her hand. But if it's just going to be losing 3 random skill cards, and you're using more than 3 skill cards to solve it, probably ain't worth it. So it goes down to Chief, and Chief's like, alright, well, I'm kind of screwed. So he's not going to put anything in either, and we'll see what we get from the Destiny deck. At any cost, that's +3. And Trust Instinct, which is add 2 more cards from the Destiny deck. So we'll add 2 more cards. Alright, Bitter Medicine, that's -3 because it's negative, not the right color. And, alright, so we went from +3 to -1. Also, the current player shuffles 2 Treachery cards into the Destiny deck. So 2 more Treachery cards get added to the Destiny deck. And this is the bad part about Treachery cards. This card here has Reckless. All Reckless does is if you can only use 1 Reckless card per skill check, and you have to use it at the beginning of the skill check, and there's a chance that you could get some negative effects on top of whatever you're doing. You'll see it eventually once we activate him, but that's just that's what Reckless is for. Alright, so the check failed, and current player discards 3 random skill cards. So he's going to go here real quick. Okay, loses the XO. Loses the build nuke, that's pretty painful. And then loses the established network. So he lost a bunch of cards, but he still has a few good ones. Alright, the symbol in the bottom left represents heavy raiders. If there's any heavy raiders or centurions on the board, they would activate. There aren't any. When there aren't any, then you check to see if there's any base stars. If there's a base star, each base star on the field will release 1. There's 1 base star on the field, so it's going to pull out 1 heavy raider. Heavy raiders are generally a lot harder to shoot down, and what they do is they beeline for these hangar areas, and if they move again while in a hangar area, they will dock onto the Galactica and then start the boarding party. And I've already talked about the boarding party. Every time heavy raiders activate, this will go up by 1. Or each centurion that's on this will go up by 1 until they reach the end, in which case the humans lose. So they can get pretty nasty. They're hard to shoot down, and when they're inside, they're even harder to get rid of. Good news is, though, we got a jump prep. Alright. That's all been resolved. Let's go to the next turn. It goes to Boomer. So Boomer gets to draw her full hand of cards. So 2 piloting, 2 tactics, and 1 engineering. Okay. So, with all of this, first thing she's going to do is she's going to go ahead and activate her CAG action. And activate an unmanned Viper. She's going to go ahead and try to shoot this heavy raider with this Viper here. Before she does that, though, she's going to do strategic planning, which will add 2 to the die result. You can only use 1 per roll. To shoot down a heavy raider, you need to get a 7 or an 8. And that's a 3 plus 2 is 5. That's a miss, which is unfortunate. Alright, and then she still has her movement and action. Technically, she should have moved first, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. She's going to move here and then start shooting down some shit. So yeah, the order of operations was she moved. Her action was she did her CAG action. CAG action gives her another action, and she's going to go ahead and play maximum firepower. Play this while piloting a Viper to attack up to 4 times. So that's the main benefit of being a manned pilot, is you can use these cards here. These don't work on unmanned Vipers. All right, so 4 shots. She's going to target the Raiders. It's 3 to 8 to hit, so that's 1 hit. 2 hits. Look at that, right on the edge. Anyway, mouse over it, it says 3, so it's definitely a 3. All right, 3 hits and 4 hits. So 4 of the 5 Raiders have been taken out. All right, and now we do the crisis phase. A desperate pact. Current player chooses. They can either do the skill check, in which case if it's a pass it's no effect, and a fail is -1 morale, and give the president title to the player highest on the presidential line of succession. Sorry, I'm really slurring my words here. Or the president discards 3 cards and then the current player draws 1 mutiny card. Mutiny cards definitely could get pretty ugly because there's definitely a lot of ways to get them. And if you get, for non-mutineers, if they get more than 1, that's a trip to the brig. If we force the president to discard 3 cards, she will have no cards, literally. Next line of succession, as far as presidency is concerned, it goes to... Wait, seriously, it goes to Chief? Is it Chief? Chief can become president here? Alright, so top of the line, top of the succession is Laura Roslam. Next in line, I believe, is 13th, which is Chief. Then it goes to Lewis at 19, and then Boomer is 21st. So, alright. The failure would be kind of annoying, but it wouldn't really give too much power away because there's no quorum cards, but it does mean they would get to pick stuff. And to be honest, Chief might actually be better at the presidency, oddly enough. Alright, 1 morale. Well, we'll do the skill check. So yeah, the current player chooses. Current player is currently Boomer. She picks to do the skill check because she doesn't want to get a mutiny card and she doesn't want the president to lose her cards. Lewis doesn't have anything that helps with this, so he's going to say nothing or not add anything. Laura doesn't exactly want to lose the presidency, but by herself she's not going to be able to do this. It does take piloting, but Boomer kind of needs that for other things. Also, I should have used full throttle a while ago. I should have used the full throttle to move and attack, but that's my bad. Anyway, yeah, I think it's just gonna be a wash. Everyone's gonna pass, including Boomer. So +3, +2, it's a fail. -1 morale, so that's our first lost resource. Presidency goes to Chief. Alright, and that happened. Okay. Also, if you had any quorum cards, they would go with the president title, but there aren't any. Okay, and then Raiders will activate. There's 1 Raider on the board, and it's going to shoot at Boomer. So it's going to roll 1d8. 8 would be a destroy. 6 and 7 on a Mark 7 will be damaged, and 8 would be destroyed. And if it's piloted, the piloted person will go to sickbay. Boomer is going to go ahead and play evasive maneuvers, which will force a reroll. And if the Viper being attacked is being piloted, you subtract 2 from the roll. Okay, that's still damaged. She'll force another reroll and hope this actually freaking works this time. There we go. That's a miss. 4 minus 2. She does not want to go to sickbay right now. One other thing to note: if there's multiple Vipers in a sector, Raiders will always target unmanned Vipers first before piloted ones. Alright, well the good news is that was it. I mean, she burned a lot of cards to save herself, but it is what it is. Alright, So that's resolved. No jump prep this time, so we don't get any progress on that. Speaking of the jump prep, there are multiple sections on this. These blue sections, it's kind of hard to see due to the resolution, but that's -3 and -1. There's a location called FTL control where you can force a jump if it's not in the red zone. But if you force a jump in one of these blue zones, you roll a d8, and if you roll anything less than a 7, you will lose whatever that number in population. So if you did it on that first blue spot and you rolled like a 6, you would lose 3 population here, and the other one would be -1. Some people like to rush it, willing to sacrifice one population over and over again, but some people, actually care about humanity. So it's just one of those things. Anyway, at the end of Boomer's turn, she can actually take a look at the top card of the Crisis deck and either put it on the top or the bottom. So we'll go ahead and look at the top card. Cylon Accusation, no effect, fails to send the current player to the brig, which would technically be Hoshi at this point. And all it would have is Raider Activation. It's not too harmful, but it also doesn't have jump prep. So she's just going to put this on the bottom. Obviously, she's the only one that saw it, but it is what it is. Alright, goes to Lewis, who finally gets some cards again. He's going to get 2 leadership, 2 tactics, and 1 engineering. Alright, so what I want to do with him is I want him to go, he can either XO somebody, which at this point might actually be better. What he's going to go ahead and do, he's actually going to go ahead and move to weapons control, which allows him to attack one Cylon ship. He's going to activate it, and he's going to target the Heavy Raider. Boomer's going to help out with this with a strategic planning to add 2 to the result. And 1d8. Alright, 5 plus 2 is 7. You need a 7 or 8 to destroy a Heavy Raider, so that destroys the Heavy Raider. Alright, and then with his ability, he can actually discard a skill card to shoot again. He's going to go ahead and discard a Launch Scout. So what's this card here? Move to sickbay, roll, okay. That's not a good one. Alright, discard that. And he's going to go ahead and activate this location again. He's going to go ahead and shoot. He's got a few choices. You can either shoot the Battlestar, which would be a 5 to 8 to damage it, or he can shoot the Raider and just end that thing. He's going to go ahead and shoot the Battlestar. So 5 to 8, 50-50 chance. Miss. Wouldn't matter what he shot at, it would have missed. Alright, that takes care of that. Next it goes to Crisis. Black Market. Current player chooses. You can either go -1 food and each player discards 1 card and then draws a treachery. Or they can do a skill check, in which case the success will actually give you food. But failure is -2 food and -1 morale, which is pretty brutal. It is yellow, green, and purple. And it's not too bad, and everyone will probably be like, yeah, we kind of got those colors. We might be able to do something with it. And Boomer's like, I could probably help. So what he's going to do is he's going to declare that we're going to do the skill check. And what Boomer's going to do is she's actually going to go ahead and play Jury-Rigged. So this is a reckless card that reduces the skill check requirement by 4. So now instead of needing 13, we only need 9. Now it's a reckless card, so what we have to do when you play a reckless card, you reveal the top card of the Treachery deck. If it's something above 0, nothing happens. If it's a 0 card, you draw another Treachery card and activate both their effects. So that's the risk. Thankfully, it was something good, something numbered, so it was fine. Also, you can only do one reckless per skill check, so no one else can play reckless right now. Alright, we're going to go ahead and add 2 skills. Or 2 cards from the Destiny deck, which probably is going to be Treachery. And it goes Laura Rosalind first. She is going to go ahead and put in 2 cards. Yeah, she'll do that. I mean, it's 9 right now, and you know what? She'll put in just the politics cards. She'd say, you know, I helped a little. Chief's gonna look at his stuff. He's like, all right, I can put a little bit in here. Boomer doesn't care about launching scouts. And then Lewis is going to be like, alright, well, everyone kind of dumped a bunch of stuff in here. We don't exactly need scout for fuel right now, but that's probably overkill. So instead, he's just going to do these 2 cards. Alright, we'll shuffle and see what we get. 1, 4, 6, 8, 10, 9, and 12. Alright, well, thanks to the jerry rig, it is a success, so it wasn't too overshot. Oh, actually, wait, there's one more card. 13, so it would have passed even without the jerry rigged. But still, it's with this one actually having a positive benefit, it might be worth kind of overshooting a bit. So you can go above your max, at least from what I've seen. So we're up to 9 food now, which will hopefully hold us over for a bit longer. Okay. Alright, next things we need to resolve is the raiders activate. There's one raider here, it's going to shoot. And unfortunately, there's not much that can be done about this one. 6. No one has any rerolls, so unfortunately that's going to send that thing back to damaged, and Boomer's going to be going to sickbay. That sucks. Alright, we do get 1 jump prep, and this is the Mutineer's turn, so he's going to draw a Mutiny card. Now, he can have 2 in his hand as a Mutineer, so he's not in jail yet. Draw a civilian ship to destroy, then increase the jump preparation track by 1 and remove this card from the game. Alright, that's pretty cool. It's risky, but it's cool. Alright, and that gets discarded, and then we cycle all the way back to Laura Rosalind. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and call this a video. I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this was Battlestar Galactica on Tabletop Simulator. We've done 1 cycle of turns so far, and we haven't done any jumps yet. We did fight some raiders, some people got wounded, but overall it's been going reasonably well. Alright, see you guys next time.